What's going on, everybody? Marcus back again with a Vengeance Demon Hunter video. I've been messing around with it on the max level beta edition, beta level realm of Legion, and I wanted to give some thoughts and run a dungeon. So we'll quickly go over some of the talents that I've been using. I've been messing around with Razor Spikes and Abyssal Strike. Razor Spikes is really good for dungeons because it snares your targets and increases your damage. But I'm going to try out Abyssal Strike just because I want that extra range on Infernal Strike. If you're not familiar with what Infernal Strike is, it's essentially just Heroic Leap with an AoE. It's actually really, really fun. Then I went with Feast of Souls, which means Soul Cleave will heal you for X amount of damage over 6 seconds. Soul Cleave is an ability in which you heal yourself and consume any soul fragments that you have nearby. Just to give you a quick tidbit on what soul fragments are, a lot of your abilities will shatter either lesser or regular soul fragments if you either walk over them or generate them. You can consume them and heal yourself, very similar to like a Death Knight's Death Strike. So we're going to go ahead and try and see there's a soul fragment right there. So I can just walk over and just pick it up just like that. And if I generate them and use an ability like Soul Cleave, let's see if I can generate one real quick here with Fell Blade or something. Actually, Fracture. Fracture will generate them. And then if I hit Soul Cleave, I'll just absorb them just like that. So my next talent, I want the Fell Blade. I wanted that extra charge. I wanted, and I wanted another pain generation. Your Vengeance Demon Hunter, as you all know, runs off of pain, which is kind of a weird way to name for a resource, but that's what they decided on. So our next talent that I chose was Fracture. Fracture actually generates soul fragments so that you can heal yourself. It's kind of like Death Strike. So it's really good. I don't like soul rending because, you know, when Metamorphosis is active, you gain leech. That's kind of more of a bursty thing. Metamorphosis is a 3-minute cooldown, whereas Fracture, all I have to do is just generate pain. Feed the Demon. Consuming a soul fragment reduces the remaining cooldown of demon spikes by 1 second. This may be a great talent if you are fighting a boss like Black Hand or Archimond, in which you're getting melee hit a lot and you're on the boss a lot. But for the most part, I'll probably go with Fracture. Next, I went with Quicken Sigils. Sigils, you have 3 of them, and this one makes them activate faster and reduces their cooldown. Fell Eruption's also a great talent. It's great for dungeons, which actually I might take for the dungeons. I just don't want too many buttons on my action bar. And then Concentrated Sigils, instead of, now they're just targeted at your feet. So I'll share the first sigil. It's called Sigil of Flame. What this one does is it just does fire damage and puts a dot. So it's a great way to grab adds. So the Demon Hunter is going to be really good at grabbing adds. Another sigil is Sigil of Silence, which silences all enemies. So it's like a targeted, you know, disrupting shout. I can just drop it just like that. Our next talent is Fell Devastation. This one is awesome. It's a 1-minute cooldown and it's a humongous self-heal. I'll show you exactly what it looks like. It costs 30 pain, so we'll go ahead and generate some pain here, and then we'll go ahead and activate Fell Devastation. It's a really cool looking ability, and it heals you. Spirit Bomb, it seems okay. It seems like something you might use in a Mythic Plus, maybe. Blade Turning, parrying the attack, increases the pain generation of your next share by 50%. If you need pain that much and you don't want a big self-heal, you might go there. Our last few talents, these are actually all situational. The one that I like the most is Soul Barrier. It's very similar to Shield Barrier that Protection Warriors currently have, but they won't have next expansion. This one is you shield yourself for 8 seconds, absorbing 285k right now damage, and consuming a soul fragment adds X amount to the shield. And it consumes all soul fragments within 20 yards. This is a big self-heal, and I love it. Nether Bond, this one's okay. You can just throw it on another tank who's fully healthed and, you know, get some health back. And then there's Last Resort, which is very similar to the Cloak proc from Missa Pandaria. It's okay for maybe a long drawn-out fight in which you know you're probably going to die. It works, but I think overall Soul Barrier is going to be your talent of choice. Now, the one thing I want to comment on about the Vengeance Demon Hunter is It's not like the Havoc Demon Hunter where there appears to be, several builds. There's a few talents here that, you can kind of mix around, but they're not really necessarily builds for they're mostly for what type of playstyle do I want and what type of boss am I fighting. So if you're fighting a big magical damage boss, you might pick different talents, but overall it's pretty fun. I'll goof around here with the rotation a bit, and you've got, like, here's an Infernal Strike again. This one's fun. Oh, let's not forget your artifact ability. Let's pull that up here. Your main artifact ability is Soul Carver, and you will shatter 2 lesser soul fragments from the target and 1 additional lesser soul fragment for every 1 second. So it's another big self-heal. This class is all about parrying and self-heals. It's also got a really awesome toolkit for pulling aggro. So if you've got a Demon Hunter tank in a dungeon, unless he doesn't know what he's doing, he should be able to have aggro on all adds at all times. If you've got a boss fight, let's say like Il'gynoth in Emerald Nightmare, he should have no problem grabbing adds. He can run around and Abyssal Strike, and then he can throw his Fell Devastation, get some aggro, throw his Sigils, get some aggro. He can silence them with his other Sigils. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous tank class. I think it's awesome. I think it's fun. And it's got a pretty simple rotation. When you take Fellblade, you have, Shear, which is what you're going to spam, very similar to like Devastate on a warrior. Then you've got Soul Carver if you've got fragments like I've just gotten. Then you've got Fellblade, which is a simple pain generator, but if you've got to move targets here like this, you can run over here and hit these targets. Useful for grabbing adds if your Infernal Strike's off cooldown. But let's not forget Throglaive. Throglaive is something you're going to want to use to grab these adds. So a Demon Hunter should have 0 issues with aggro. That's the one thing I'll say, as opposed to a Warrior, which will have a lot of AoE aggro issues. So why don't we go ahead and queue up for a dungeon. Alright, now we're in the dungeon here. We're in US-Sargeras, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to grab these adds and how fun it is to tank adds. It is pretty fun. You get to use Immolation Aura, which is your standard like Thunderclap-esque AoE ability. You've also got the Sigil of Flame, which is just going to pull everybody in. Throw Glaive is incredible for it. You just throw Glaive and bam, 3 targets are yours. Except for the pet that decided to have his, the hunter decided to have his pet Tauntaun. It was relatively easy to gather Threat. I had no problems with Threat. I had a lot of fun too. Using Infernal Strike to jump on adds over and over again was a boatload of fun. What I am going to comment on is not necessarily the theory crafting behind it, but mainly the style and the feel and how fun it actually is to be a Vengeance Demon Hunter. The one thing that I did notice that you will see me kind of switching on and off, since this was my actual second dungeon I've ever run on a Vengeance Demon Hunter, is there's a few different ways that you can handle damage. You can either use Demon Spikes, which is your standard active mitigation. You can use Soul Barrier if you've taken that talent, which is a big heal. Or if you've taken Fracture, or if you have lesser Soul Fragments or Soul Fragments spawned, you can just use Soul Cleave and heal yourself right up. And how you choose to handle a situation is going to be key, because you have to maintain your pain. You have to be a master of pain. Because Demon Spikes is only 10 pain, Soul Barrier is 30 pain, whereas Fracture is 40 pain, and you have to have a certain amount of pain to swallow the fragments unless you run up to them like I just did. So handling adds, not too shabby. It is a awesome tank for handling adds. I would say it's on par with like the Brewmaster in terms of how it handles adds and the feel of it, except it's just much more epic. I mean, you're a demon hunter, you're metamorphosizing, you're jumping through the air, you're throwing fire down, you're slashing away with warglaives. The tank class feels amazing, and if I may say, it doesn't feel necessarily like Havoc, where it's just slashy. It feels almost demon-esque, where you are slashing it, but you have all these other fell abilities that are a lot different than the Havoc build. And now we get to the first boss fight, where, once again, the Demon Hunter's active mitigation, I didn't take much damage. Mechanically, it's solid, and we'll take a look here how it all plays out. I'll jump in with an Infernal Strike, get my aggro. I'll drop my Sigil of Flame, put a dot on him, make sure I've got that full aggro, and start shearing away. This fight actually has ads that spawn, and you'll see right here how easy it is to grab these ads. I mean, I targeted and taunted, but if I were to just throw Glaive or Immolation Aura, I'd have aggro, and you're throwing dots on them. The mitigation is fine. My damage intake is fine. I'm using my Demon Spikes often. I think I even barrier out here a little bit. But overall, in terms of a boss fight, the tank feels fantastic. I don't feel like I'm gimped, and at times I do feel a little squishy, but that's only because I didn't handle my pain properly, or I pulled too much aggro, or I made a mistake. So I don't see any real glaring issues with the Demon Hunter per se. Depending upon what talents you take, if you're fighting a melee boss that hits really, really hard, you might want to go Soul Barrier. If you've got a long, drawn-out fight, you might want to go with Desperate Instincts. But other than that, this boss fight was no problem. The next boss fight, which I'll show you, is pretty crazy how I actually handled it, but it shows the second part about the Demon Hunter as a tank, where it shines. All right, this next boss fight here has a lot of movement and a lot of damage coming out, and you're going to see the Demon Hunter tank shine. Because you have Infernal Strike and Fell Blade, which is a talent, you are literally at the mercy of how fast you are in terms of your tanking capabilities. The Demon Hunter tank mobility, pulling ads, absorbing damage, healing yourself, going in and out of places is phenomenal. I couldn't be happier with what I've noticed with this tank. It's really the tank that I think that they wanted the Brewmaster to be in a lot of ways. The Brewmaster obviously is more stagger based, with its first two iterations in Mists and Warlords. But as you can see here, I need to go tank the boss over there. I'll just go hop on over there and take care of that. This boss had a slowing mechanic, which I wasn't too familiar with. But this boss has tentacles that spawn up, and you need to go over and tank them and absorb damage, and I handle it just fine. If I needed soul fragments, I just absorbed soul fragments. Wasn't managing my pain as well as I should have been. Like I said, only the second time I've given this class a run, but I had a blast with it. This boss fight was crazy, tons of damage going out, but managing your fractures and your soul cleave and making sure that you stay focused on whether or not you have fragments out is key. I hope that somebody makes a weak aura, or maybe I can try and come up with a weak aura, which lets you know how many soul fragments you have out and what kind are they, so that way you know what to pop, because sometimes they can get lost in the shovel. They're these tiny purple circles that hang around that you can't seem to get a hold of, or can't seem to see unless there's just nothing around. So as you can see here, I'm just moving and moving and moving, having a blast. I almost don't feel like a tank half the time. I really don't. I feel like a Demon Hunter that can pull aggro and heal himself and defend himself. And I think that's really the class fantasy of the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Is you're not necessarily like a sword and board tank like a warrior or a paladin. You're not this humongous bear like a druid. You're not this, you're not a death knight that has tons of self-heals, tons of defensive capabilities, whereas the Demon Hunter is a little bit different on how it works, and I really, really like it, and I hope to really do a lot of content with it, a lot of Mythic Dungeons, a lot of Mythic Plus, maybe even a little bit of raiding with it. I think Dungeons is where it shines, from what I've been told. In terms of Mythic Plus, it's going to be one of the best tanks for Mythic Plus, simply because of how easily it can hold aggro, how much damage it can do. That's another thing I didn't mention. This class hits a ton. It is a truck. So overall, I'd give this class 9 out of 10. It's a fantastic tank, and I can't wait to see more of it in Legion. So like, comment, and subscribe if you like the video.